Okay. Like I said, the program tonight is shaping and sharpening wood turning tools. So I've been trying to memorize this first bit here, and every time I read it, I start falling asleep. So let me just read the first bit here, so I worked on getting the wording the way I wanted it. So she fell asleep. This presentation is about shaping and sharpening wood turning tools. I'm going to explain how I set up my sharpening station and the various gauges that I use to sharpen my tools quickly and with repeatability. After the lathe, the next most important piece of wood turning equipment is your sharpening station. The setup of your sharpening station needs the same attention as the setup of your lathe. And since sharp tools is required for a pleasant turning experience, your sharpening station needs to be a pleasure to use. So you'll sharpen your tools as frequently as they need to be sharpened. The sharpening station needs to be at a good height, with good lighting and easy access. Okay, enough of the reading there. Okay, first thing I want to start off with is the stance around the grinder. And oftentimes the grinder seems like it sort of has an afterthought, oh, well, I guess I better get a grinder to sharpen my tools with, and it's stuck on the workbench somewhere back in the corner or some low platform. And when it's on a table or a low platform, you're limited to have to stand in front of the tool, so in front of the grinder. So one possibility is you're down here and you're moving your body around like this, trying to keep out of the way of the tool handle, trying to keep the leg pocket seated firmly in the thing, and you end up concentrating more on keeping out of the way of the tool handle than you do on keeping the tip on the grinder where it should be and keeping the pocket, or keep this down here. Well, then another possibility is standing back out of the way of the handle and sort of rotating it around like this. And again, you're got several things you got to keep in mind here, and you end up this not staying in the pocket, or the tool slipping off the grinding wheel, and just not having very good control over the tip on the grinding wheel. And then besides this being kind of low and uncomfortable, another solution would be to stand in front of it like this and grind one wing, then move the tool over to the other side, grind the other wing, and then sort of stand aside and connect those two wings together. But to me, it's not comfortable. And if it's not comfortable to use, you're not going to use it as often as what you should use it. So now over here on my station, I've got it up at a comfortable height. I got lighting, and I've access all the way around it. And this is my preferred stance, like this, off to the side. I can, with my left hand holding the leg down in the pocket, my right hand on top of the jig, I have full control over the tip of the tool on that grinding wheel. And I'm not having to move my body around to stay out of the way of the path of the handle. So this is the way I prefer using my sharpening station. And I enjoy sharpening the tools consequently. So I'll sharpen my tools when they need sharpening instead of him hauling around.
It's almost as much fun as sanding.
Yeah. So that's the stance. And okay, my sharpening station, I've got a standalone cabinet. This cabinet has several purposes throughout its life. It used to be a drill press stand and a belt sander stand, but now it's my sharpening station. I have a Porter cable variable speed grinder. I got it at Lowe's, and I think it was about $110 or maybe $120. A lot of people get the low speed grinder from Woodcraft. Well, I wanted to have a light on mine, so this one came with a light. The Delta grinder, it also has a light, but it's about 1.5 times as expensive as this one. Now, the way this one came out of the box, when you turn the motor on, then you could turn the light on and off. So you couldn't turn the light on with the motor turned off. Well, I didn't like that. So I rewired the bottom down there, and I put the light wire on the other side of the motor switch, and now I have control of the light without the motor being running. I've also installed the Norton 3X grinding wheels. I've got a 46 grit for shaping over here, and I've got an 80 grit for sharpening over here. And I was once queried as to why I put the coarse wheel on the right and the fine wheel on the left, because the Woodcraft grinder has the fine wheel on the left. Well, since I'm right-handed, most of my time is over here on the sharpening wheel. I like to stand on the left side of the grinder. So that's why I put the fine wheel on this side. It's just strictly my preference. Now, what the Norton grinding wheels come with a 1-inch hole in the center, and the arbor on the grinder is a 5/8 inch hole. Well, the instructions that come with the Norton wheels is you're supposed to use these bushings to fill up the gap between the 1-inch hole on the wheel to the 5-inch hole in the arbor. You see these bushings are not very, lot of looseness.
Stop recording.
That's probably because I didn't press the record button. Probably because I didn't press the record button. So that was one problem I had when I put these wheels on. I was fussing with trying to get the wheels balanced, and the directions that came with the Norton grinding wheels, you're supposed to use masking tape in here to sort of fill up the gaps and shim everything. Well, that didn't work very well. And then to go along with that was these metal washers. These are the washers that come with most grinders of this price range. The wheel clamping washers that clamp against the sides of the wheels. Well, these are stamped and they're not machined, so they're not true. So the Norton instructions was you're supposed to put masking tape, run the wheel and find out where the high spot is for the run out on the side. You mark that and then you put some masking tape on the other side. And that's supposed to take care of it. Well, if you got these washers taken off, put back on exactly the same spot, well, that might work. But everything, then when you're tightening it down, everything wants to slip this way and that way. I fussed with that for about 3 or 4 days and finally gave up on it. And I ordered the one-way wheel balancing system.
What is low speed to you?
Well, it's 17 something, I believe.
17.
High speed is 36, and I think low speed is 34 and 17, something like that.
3450.
I thought I could talk while I was taking this off, and I can't do two things at one time. Okay, this balancing, which camera are you going to be on for this? Is it overhead or?
They're both functional.
Okay. It comes with hubs. It has a 1-inch, the OD of the hub is 1-inch diameter to fit the wheel, and then you can get the inside diameter either 5/8 or 1/2 inch depending on your grinder. And then this hub, the inner part of this hub is threaded. This is threaded. It screws on, so you get a nice firm fit against the side of the wheel. And then it has these slots around here that you can, for these bolts for counterbalancing the wheel. And then it also comes with a little balancing stand. You know, it's got bearings on there. They fit in there. So it allows you to balance the wheel perfectly.
Is that a crack?
Is that a crack?
No, it's a line.
No, mark. That's a mark. It's not. Yeah, it's just a pencil mark. See? So you can get your wheels so they're perfectly balanced with that.
Mention how you check those, by the way.
Well, yeah, you. And if it's sort of a dull thud, then it's got a crack in it. So I've been very pleased with it, and I would highly recommend, if you're going to replace the wheels, don't even fuss with masking tape. Get one of these balancing
How
systems.
much is the one-way balance?
I think it's about 70. With the stand and the two hubs.
Okay, this is brand new to me. Joe Romanski was up at Chattahoochee Tuesday and Wednesday. He has gone to the CBN course, as has Mike, and loves it. Says the grinder runs dead on for balance.
But I think that's only for sharpening, not for shaping.
True.
They have a shaping wheel if you can afford
Of
it.
course, a grit wheel. Right?
Yeah.
So you still need a wheel to do your shaping with. You know, we had a workshop with Warren Carpenter up at Woodcraft a couple months ago. They had a CBN wheel on the grinder up there, and people were trying to shape their tools to match Warren Carpenter's Ellsworth grind, and it just wasn't working on that CBN wheel. It was just way
You're
too
right at
slow.
180.
Yeah. I don't know what the grit was on it, but it was way too fine to try to shape a tool on. Any questions about that? Like I say, I would highly recommend, if you're going to replace the wheels, don't waste your time on trying to balance it with masking tape, because it was. And then another thing, if you can see, yeah, you can see on this one over here, it's very close with that hub on the inside there. It moves your wheel out a little bit, and there's not much space there between the outer shell and the wheel. So what I did was I just took a pair of pliers and went around like that and just created you can see I just flared it out a little bit. There, you can see where it's flared out? I just flared it out enough just to give me a little bit more clearance between that and the wheel.
So you only have that hub on your shaping wheel?
No, it's on both.
On both.
Same thing on both, yeah.
And $70 is for 2 wheels?
Yes, 2 hubs and the balancing.
So you got $140 worth of balancing on there.
No, $70 includes 2 hubs and the balancing. So the balancing
Two
kit,
sets of hubs.
huh?
One,
There's 2 hubs,
One grinder.
one for each wheel.
Okay.
And where did you get that?
I got mine from Craft Supply, but I think any place that has one-way stuff would have it. And you never want to run these wheels without the shroud on here. Now, a CBN wheel, that's made out of solid steel. So in fact, if you get from GWA Tools, you get the wheel is what, 1.5 inch wide or 1 1/4.
so it's bigger than the one.
It's too wide to fit on here, so you can't run the shrouds. But it's made out of solid steel. There's no problem of it fracturing and coming apart.
And it's been machine balanced already, so it'll run through. And if you're only replacing one wheel, it will definitely take a lot of the unbalance out
Well,
of
you
the
get half
other
of it
wheel,
anyway,
because
right?
it's like one heavy flywheel
Yeah.
on one side. So my recommendation would be take the $70 and put it toward a $200 CBN wheel and put it on and replace your fine wheel.
Well, you still have the problem of balancing the other wheel, though, even if
What I'm saying is it takes out half the problem though, because it acts as a flywheel
Yeah.
effect. And you're gonna be happier with it than with a well-balanced 120
Well,
grit fine.
when it comes time to replace my fine wheel, I might think about it, but it's not in the cards right now.
It's a luxury, but it's a very nice luxury.
Well,
If you do a lot of
have-
turning,
having
it makes sharpening more pleasant because you don't get all the aluminum oxide dust. You don't have to. You can take the shroud off. You can see what you're doing better, and it runs smoother, and it does a better job on powdered metal.
For example, here's this grinder here, and I'm sure it doesn't have any kind of balancing wheels in there. That's running fairly smooth, much smoother than what mine was when I was trying to replace those wheels. Where here's the one that's got the balance wheels on it. You can just tell by listening to it. And the drawback of it having that is it takes a lot longer for it to slow down.
RPM?
It's down as slow as it'll go. I think it's about 1700. I don't see a label on there. But the speed is turned all the way down. Well, here it says 2,000 to 3,400. So it must be 2,000 RPMs. Here's my brake.
How much that cost?
What, the brake? I think I don't know where I got that.
Looks like a long
It probably came out of my scrap bin.
One way break.
Huh? because I don't want to wait for it to stop spinning.
What are you gonna do when it stops?
Huh? I'm going to go to the next step. If I'm home sharpening tools, yeah, I don't care. But now I wanted to get it stopped so I could do what I was going to do next. And sometimes I just don't have the patience to wait for it to stop. Okay, the set. I have the one-way sharpening system, as opposed to, I think this is one that came from Penn State. And you just have to, you can feel the smoothness of the slide, how well it locks. It will slide, but you can just feel it, and you can tell the difference by just feeling it. So, I would recommend if you're just getting a sharpening system, I would recommend the one way. In order for me to be able to sharpen or shape a wheel over here on the core stone, or shape a tool on the core stone, and then come over here and finish sharpening it over on the fine stone, I need to have these bases mounted exactly the same, so that if I'm going to be taking away steel here or shaping, if I come over here, I want the shape to be the same over here. I don't want to have to waste a lot of steel away to get it to fit the base over here. And also, you want the slide to be in line with the rotation of the wheel, so that when you're using a pivoting type jig like the one-way Wolverine jig, you'll have your wings will be balanced on both sides of the tool. So with that in mind, I took some extra care in getting everything set up. I started off with a plywood base, ripped as straight an edge on it as I could on my table saw, and then I'm going to use that for a reference for everything for the rest of the setup. The one-way instructions say that the center of the arbor should be 6 1/4 to 6.5 inches above the mounting surface for the one-way base system. So I shimmed up the center part here, shimmed it up here to give me the 6 1/4. So now I went for 6 3/8 to this base here. And then when I got it in that range, I found out that my arbor wasn't running parallel true to the base, and also the base rocked a little bit from front to back. So I don't know if you can see on the camera, I've got some styrene plastic shims in here underneath the base. You can see one of the white down there. That's stream plastic, and you can get that at any hobby shop. It comes in like 10,000s, 15,000s, 20, 30, 40, 60,000s in sheets, and just cut it in strips. But that's what I used then to get it shimmed up and so I had the same distance and I'm actually measured from the bottom of the nut using my little gauge. This is something at the wood show, the demonstration was so good, so I had to have one. And 3 years later, I found a use for it. Well, that's what I used to measure up to the bottom flat spot on the nut, and I shimmed it then until I had the same measurement on both sides of the motor.
Took you 2 years to figure out a use for that.
Yeah. Well, his demonstration was used for putting molding on your windows. Well, I don't really do much of that. So. But it was, and I got my name put on it. They put my name on it.
That was what
Quite some salesman.
Yeah. And then the one-way instructions then says that you mount the grinder so that the fronts of the wheels is in line with the front of the platform. Well, that's fine if your wheels are both perfectly the same diameter. Well, they might not be the same diameter. If you did that, you'd be cocking your axis and your wheels would be running true. So what I did, and I took that off, I was going to leave that off. What I did was a laser pointer. I was going to use this kind of a laser pointer here, but it's got like a 1/16 or an 1/8 inch blob. This one goes down to a really nice fine line. So what I did, and I won't turn this on so I don't flash anybody in the face, I used some double stick tape and taped it on the side of the wheel, and I rotated it back and forth, and I saw my line across there, and then I used my T-square, or my tri-square, and I was able to position the grinder then so that line was running perpendicular to the front of my base here. So then once I got the grinder in that position, I went in with a pencil and I just marked the holes in the plywood base down there. And then I drilled the holes a bit oversized to give me a little bit of wiggle room, put the bolts in there, then I went back with the laser thing again and got it and lined it up and tightened the motor down. So that's how I got the grinder positioned on the base so that the wheels are running perfectly perpendicular to my front reference edge here. And then the next thing was to get the Wolverine bases mounted. So if you can see here, I scribed the mark on the front. I can show you on the back side here. Can you see it on the front?
Yeah.
Right there, there's a scribe mark. What it is, I just sort of guessed. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but I just went in the center of that channel and then made a scribe mark down there. And then also I marked the center of my wheel and transferred that line down to my base. So I had the center of my wheel marked down here on my base, and I had the center of my Wolverine base there. So then again, I came back referencing on my front of my base. Since this is an extruded piece of aluminum, that this flange down here is going to be parallel to this tube here. So I used that to position my base on the center line of the wheel and perpendicular to the front reference edge again. So with that amount of precision, I can shape my tool over here with the same jig settings, bring it over here, and then sharpen it and not have to waste away a bunch more steel. It's going to be right on the shape that I created over here.
Drop this.
Oh, let's put it inside my pocket.
Yep.
And then I say also, by having this slide directly in line with the wheel, when you run your tool back and forth, if it was cocked a bit, you'd come over on this side and you'd have one angle on your wing. You come over here and it'd be a different angle on your wing. So this gives you, your wings are going to be balanced in with the profile on the wings. Okay, through this program, I'm going to be using the term shape and sharpen. My definition of shape is the overall geometry of the tool, the geometry of the cutting edge. You got the angle on the nose, and you got the angle on the bevel, the angle on the wings. You can see it there. We've been on this camera over here.
Pretty close to the wheel, I think we can see it.
If you stay in one place, the camera operator
Okay.
can probably find you.
So you have the angle on the nose, the angle of the wings, how far they tilt in, how far they swept back, and then the shape of the top of the bevel. That's the shape of the tool, and then also use the term shape as the act of grinding it to get that geometry out of the tool. So that's my definition of shaping. And then sharpening is just a matter of truing up or dressing the bevel. And to quote David Ellsworth, when you're sharpening a tool, don't grind it. You simply dress the bevel. So your challenge is not to take away a lot of steel. You're just cleaning up that bevel and renewing your edge. And there's many different shapes on turning tools. There's no one perfect shape that's going to be useful for all different techniques. And for me, it's an evolving process. I see somebody do a demonstration, so I want to try that. Well, it might require changing the shape on your tool. If you want to do it the way the instructor's doing it, you might have to reshape your tool to match what the instructor has. So there's always all different techniques, and there's all different shapes of tools. So I can't tell you what the best tool shape to use. It's something you have to try yourself and see what works for you. You'll watch somebody's demonstration. If you see somebody doing something that you'd like to try, you figure out how their tool is shaped, and then go home and do yours. If you're doing a workshop, which I highly recommend doing, having people do is do workshops. Well, oftentimes the instructor, he'll grind your tool to match his tool. So you can note, and if they're using a Wolverine jig, you can note the angle of the leg, the extension of the arm, and all that stuff. But it may not, because the elevation or the difference between from the base to the center of the axis, if that's different by very much, the same settings are not going to work on your system at home. So I'm going to show you a process that's, well, you can have the instructor grind your tool for you on whatever's in the classroom, take it home and figure out how to make that same setting on your system and get the same profile and grind out of it. So the things that you need to know, again, is the angle of the bevel on the nose, the angle of or the shape and angle of the wings, and the protrusion from the front of the tip, from the grind, from the jig, are the three things that you need to know, and then sometimes also the flute profile. Okay, I've seen videos from professional DVDs from professional turners, and they will say, oh, they only do freehand grinding. Well, you'll watch them go do the grinding, and then they'll take the tool and turn it over, and oftentimes you got multiple facets on that tool. And they'll say, don't worry about that, it doesn't affect the cutting any. Well, like I say, I'm a bit anal when it comes to that. I like a tool to look nice too, along with cutting nice. So I'm not a proponent of freehand sharpening. And also those that do freehand sharpening, they say, well, I don't want to mess around with setting up the jig. It just takes too long. I can go I can just sharpen it in much less time it takes me to set up the jig. Well, my contention is, using what I'm going to show you tonight, I can set my tool up and have it sharpened just as quickly as they can. And I think I'm going to have a better edge. And it's going to look a lot nicer too. It's going to be a single facet on the bevel. And I'm not going to be wasting tool steel either. You'll see them up there, they'll be on the grinding wheel, they'll go back trying to feel where that bevel's at, and then they get right, and then they'll move around, but they end up wasting away a lot of tool steel doing that. So when you have it set up and have repeatability on your jigs, you don't waste away a lot of tool steel when you're doing the sharpening. Okay, and I said, when you do the jig sharpening, and you do the angle of the leg, the extension of the support arm, and the protrusion of the tip. And then if you're dealing with a bowl gouge, there's different flute shapes on bowl gouges. There's a V shape. I'll go around this way. Yeah, where the wings are fairly straight, and then it's curved over on the bottom. And then there's a parabolic or elliptical, or something like that. And then there's U-shape. It's just a complete U. So different grinds are not suitable for all these different profiles. We had a session up with Ashley Hardwood that uses Stuart Batty's 40-40 grind. Well, she said that grind will not work on a U-shaped flute. It works best on a V-shaped flute, or it'll work on a parabolic flute. And then I had a workshop with Warren Carpenter. Warren Carpenter and who's the guy who was up at Chattahoochee a month or so ago. Anyway, they both use the Ellsworth grind.
Lopez?
Yeah, Rudy Lopez. They both use the Ellsworth grind. Well, Warren told me, but the Ellsworth grind did not work well with the V-shaped flute. It works best on the parabolic, and you can always use it on the U-shaped flute. So when you're seeing a demonstration and you like the way the tool is ground, you have to also be cognizant of the shape of the flute, because it might be that your flute shape will not work with that particular grind.
No matter how much steel you
Right.
grind. You can't imagine if the flutes don't match.
And as I said, if you're in a workshop, have the instructor sharpen your tool the way he sharpens his, and then use his same jig while you're there finishing that day. And then when you get home, I'm going to show you how you can figure out how to set your system up to reproduce those same results. Okay, start off, and the procedure I'm going to tell you about is something I got, and I don't know if Lyle coined this procedure or not, but it was a DVD called Bowl Basics, the Easy Way with Lyle Jamieson.
It's on YouTube now.
Oh, okay.
That all his old DVDs
Oh.
broken down into like 10 or 15 minute segments by topic, and they're on YouTube.
But that's a great DVD. It's a two DVD set, and he starts off with leveling the lathe, to getting rough wood on the lathe, just everything. Anything you think about, imagine about making a bowl, he covers it in that DVD set. So you start off with setting your extension to what I would whatever the instructor was using on his demonstration. I would use the same protrusion. Now I've always used about 2 inches for mine. The problem you run into is if you make it much over 2 inches, you can see down here this wheel here clamps on the top of the flute. Well, I'm just about out of flute here for it to clamp onto. See, it's only going back another ½ inch, so I'm soon going to get to where I'm either going to have to grind the top of this off, trying to keep the same flat area of this flute, or I'm not going to be able to use this jig with a 2-inch protrusion anymore. So you can go, some people say 1 3/4 inches, and I think Mike has used something less than that. Well, if you make it too little, when you start rotating the thing over, you have a chance of the shape of the body of the jig running into the wheel and grinding the jig instead of the tip of the tool. So if you go too short, you might run the jig into the wheel. If you make it too long, you're going to run out of clamping area on your flute here quicker. Like I said, I usually start about 2 inches, but what I would say is whatever the instructor grounded at initially. The main thing is that you want to, once you get your stuff set up, you always need to have that same protrusion. And the way I initially had done that protrusion was a little block of wood. I cut it 2 inches wide, and then screwed I'm wandering all around here. Screwed a piece of masonite on the bottom of it. So if down in the hole, if I chew that piece of masonite out down the bottom of the hole, I can just take it off, put another piece of masonite, and I've still got my 2-inch block. But I would set.
Jordan's got an interesting trick. He does that, measures it precisely. He CAs a nickel at the bottom.
Well, that's metal against metal.
Yeah.
Doesn't that mess up the point of your tool a little bit if you jam it down in
A
there?
lot softer than tool
Huh?
steel.
I don't know.
Well-
John Jordan says it works. I wouldn't
Well,
want to get in an argument.
I've been using this for probably a year or so, and you can see a few little scratches down there, but it's not a real big dent. I don't jam it down there. I'll just lightly set the tool down in there and then set the block of wood on it. And that's what I initially was using to set my protrusion.
But you're setting it before you sharpen it anyway,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't make any difference.
Right.
That alone, no.
So that's where I start at. So we say we got a tool here, and we don't know what our settings are going to be. I've set the 2 inches there, and I don't know where this is going to be. So I'm just going to come over here, and I'm just going to pick some place for that. And now you might want to get in as close as you can on here, Bob. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to just eyeball that bevel on the wheel and tighten it up there. And then once I get that tight, then I'm going to roll it over on the wing, and I'm going to look for a gap there. And I can see I need to move my arm in again to get a flat bevel there. Then rotate it back up here. I'm going to have to readjust this up there. Roll it over one more time, and it's pretty close. Okay, after 2 times like that, you really are getting really close to where it should be. So the way you can tell if you're dead on is just come back and darken the tip. Darken the tip with the magic marker. Okay, put it up on the nose, and just I can tell it's not right because it's running a little rough. Go over on the side, over on this side, and there I can see that my shiny spot is rubbing down here on the heel. Down on the heel, can you see it there? Or is it better on this wheel camera over here?
Take your word.
There, see the shiny spot is down on the heel, on the nose. Over here on the side, I was up on the edge, and up here I'm on the edge. So on the nose, I've got to bring my angle up a little bit. That sounds better. And now I'm probably going to have to move this out because I was I was grinding on that, so I've got to move that in a bit farther there. And I'm going to come back and do the same thing again. Okay, I'm rubbing down here on the heel now, so I went in a little bit too far, but I'm still down here on the nose down here on the heel here. So let me just raise it up a little bit farther.
Dan, in all these workshops and instructors that you've encountered, have you encountered that much variation in the setup?
Quite a bit. You know, there's a lot of difference between Stuart Batty and Ellsworth grinds, the way you use the tool. But Jimmy Clues has this. This is a Jimmy Clues grind, by the way, and this is an Ellsworth grind. And you see they're both swept back wings, but the Ellsworth grind is swept back much farther. This is Ellsworth. This is Jimmy Clues.
Is that an Ellsworth gouge? Is that an Ellsworth
No,
gouge?
it's a Benjamin Best gouge.
I guess I'd suggest you may not get an Ellsworth grind on a non-Ellsworth gouge.
Oh, you mean
because of
the jig?
profile.
The jig?
Kind of similar.
Because of the flute profile.
Well, this is a parabolic flute profile. And looking at his book, the best I can tell from his book, his is parabolic too. But yeah, and it could be that you can't get exactly the same, but it's close enough for my purposes.
If it was sharpened by somebody,
Mhm.
then what you're doing, you'll be duplication, period.
But what I ended up doing is that the Tormek has one of the jig settings that they have programmed in there is an Ellsworth grind. That's where this actually came from, was off of that. So that's how you can get your and you see now I'm coming all the way down across the grind on the flute. It's not showing very well on there. See, my shiny mark is coming from the heel all the way up to the cutting edge. It's not quite there, but my tip is still on the heel. But that's how you do it. Just take a little bit longer and go back and forth, and you can get it dead on to where you got a nice shiny pattern. So now, if that's the only tool you're going to grind with your Varigrind jig, you just put a screw in it, and you lock it down, and never change it again. But like me, I'm always trying other grinds with other people, so I wanted to change the setting of my jig. So one of the first workshops I had with Jimmy Clues, and I went through the same thing with Jimmy Clues. He ground the tool for me. And in fact, he ground a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge, and he was used the same setting on both. There was a different extension here, but the angle on the wing was the same. The angle on the knee was the same. So I left it like that for months. And then I saw another demonstration that had another technique, and so I think I'll try that. Well, I wanted to be able to get back to that, so what I did was I made a scribe mark on the side of my jig. I made a scribe mark for the Jimmy Clues grind, and that's that mark right there is the Jimmy Clues grind. So I could always go back to that spot. Well, as you can see, I had several other ones that I tried here too. There's some other scribe marks on there. Well, I'll never claim to be the brightest light in the forest, but it did take me long to realize that putting scribe marks on there was not the way to get the reproducibility. So I had to come up with a different method. So one day I was looking around on Doug Thompson's website, and I came across this paper here. Oh, this is how he grinds his tools, and he had a photocopy of his one-way jig setting. I thought, oh, that looks like a good idea. But I didn't want to photocopy mine and use up a lot of black ink on my printer. So what I did was I just laid the tool down on a piece of paper and just traced around the significant parts, and it gave me that. So I could just lay the jig down on there and line it up with the tool in the place, and I'd have my leg setting then. And then my tool handle has got a number 1 on it. My page here's got a number 1 on it. So I know when I pick up the number 1, I get that page, and that's how I set my Varigrind jig. Well, that was fine for the Varigrind jig, but the way I was doing the arm setting is that I was going back to the black marker thing, and I was sitting here playing around with this, moving this in and out, turning the wheel by hand until I got a nice solid shiny streak on there. And I was looking for it, and that works. It just took time. So then I was looking through the craft supply catalog one day, and I came across these Raptor tools, Raptor tools. Well, that looked like a good idea. But if you read the fine print down here, it says your Varigrind jig has to be set on 23 degrees. The angle on the leg is 23 degrees.
That's because Kurt Deere designed it.
Yeah.
And that's what he used.
So that's what you got all these different tip angles down here. And you get that tip angle as long as your leg is set on 23 degrees. Well, that's not what I wanted.
And your wheel is appropriate
Right.
size.
So I said, well, I could make something like that. So this is what I did. And there's my number one that goes with that tool. So what I did is I just took, just copied the same sort of shape they had there, just made a piece of, I wish George was here because I used my scroll saw on this. So I just made a piece of shape like that, come out here a bit farther, and then I just put it up against the side of the wheel and made a line out there. And of course it's going to be off a little bit because it's angled instead of straight, but then I cut that and I just sort of whittled it down. Then what I ended up doing is once I got it close, then I just put it on the wheel. Once I got it close, I just put it on the course wheel like that and just went like that and got it down to where I really wanted it. So that's what I used then for setting my my support arm distance. So I had this, and I could use the paper here to set my leg angle, and I was set.
You developed those to suit the Varigrind.
My particular jig, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, like I say, I had a hands-on with Warren Carpenter up Woodcraft a couple months ago. So I took my paper and my jig with me. I went over to the grinder and set this like this and set my jig, and I put my tool up there, and it was completely off. It wasn't even close to being where it should be. So I don't know if it was a vertical distance or what was different, but there was something different on that grinder.
Well, the one, I forget the name that you just held up, the red.
Oh, Raptor?
Yeah. Somebody had the copy of their arms at Chattahoochee.
Mm-hmm.
So I go home and I make them, and the height setting is considerably different between the base of the tool to the center of the wheel.
Yeah. So it's different. That's
You
what I
gotta
say.
do one or the other. The combo don't work.
My recommendation is make the jigs on your grinding system, and you know they're going to work there. They may not work anywhere else. But if your buddy goes to the same effort setting his up as you do yours, you can at least do it at his house. So that's what I did, and I used that for quite some time. That method, and it worked fine until I went to another workshop one day.
Oh my God.
You'll run out of steel.
Which was a Rudy Lopez workshop. Well, Rudy Lopez, he had a different kind of a jig. He had made a jig like this.
That's the Kurt Deere jig.
No, it's not the same as Kurt's, because this has got some other stuff on it.
Yeah.
So what this was, it'd be better if I put it on this. Can you see it on that wheel? Well, can you see it over here if you zoom in?
Put it on the other one we can see better.
Huh?
Move the arm to the other
Bob
wheel.
zooms in, you can see it.
If Bob zooms in.
Well, you won't be able to see the overhead. Do you want to see it on the overhead or not?
I'm gonna run 3
Now just
cameras
let Bob
here.
zoom in.
Yeah. Zoom in. So what this one is it's flat on the bottom, and you hold it in your pocket down here, and so you hold hold this in one hand, and you slide the wheel in with the other hand, or maybe I slide the arm in with the other hand until it just touches the wheel, and then you got to let go somewhere, and you lock it down. So that's how you get the distance of the support arm, and then this this notch up here is a place to this notch up here is to hold the body of your jig, and it's got 2 dimples here. There's 2 dimples. Well, the top dimple is going to match that bolt head there, and you slide the leg around until it falls into the other dimple. And that's how you get repeatability using that jig, or gauge, I call them, not jig. So I thought that was a good idea. It beat my having to have two pieces, a piece of paper and that. So this is one thing to do both tricks. But like I said, I felt it was kind of cumbersome. By holding it in the basket here, it seemed like it just had some room for error. That wasn't quite as precise as I wanted. Plus, you really needed three hands to do it. You had to have one hand to move this, one hand to hold here, and one hand to lock it down. So I got to thinking about it, and I made some modifications. I still got this notch here. Sorry, the notch on the front was just to provide clearance for the grinder guard. So what I did is instead of having a flat bottom like Rudy did, I cut a notch down here, and that provided clearance for the basket, the pivot basket. So now what I can do, and I can set it in here, and it'll rest right on the arm instead of back here on the basket. And I got a thumb hole here. I can firmly hold it down onto the arm with one hand, and then take the other hand in to lock it down. Okay? So I thought that worked a lot better. I still have the dimples where I can put it in there and get my angle of my arm precise. Another thing I added was the nose protrusion. I cut this notch here to the depth of my nose protrusion. So a 2-inch nose extension. So I can take the tool, and latch it down. So everything I need to know to set up to grind that gouge is right on this one piece of wood. So I get everything that I need. However,
You went to another show.
the problem with that,
How many bolt gouges do you have?
I buy cheap ones, so I got a bunch. That was my theory anyway. Well, if I buy bowl gouges for $20, $30 a piece, I can buy 3 or 4 compared to buying one for $80 or something, and I can play around with different grinds. That was my theory anyway. I've had people tell me that wasn't a very good theory, but it still works for me. But as you can see here, before I drilled the holes, I marked the angle I went around the pencil line, and you see the pencil line is not exactly where those holes are at. So the problem I had was getting that hole drilled right where I wanted it. Now you say, well, that might be close enough, but again, I said I'm kind of anal about that. So I wanted a better way than relying on those holes because it was, and I put it down, and I would tap it, try to figure out how to make a dent in the wood, and then drill the hole there, and I still didn't get it exactly where I wanted it.
How many different variations do you have of the leg extension?
Well, at least three with just the bowl gouges I got here now. Because I got the Jimmy Clues grind, I got the Ellsworth grind, I got the Stuart Batty grind. They're all different leg angles. So my next, still got the same thing on the front, but on the back,
Define anal.
huh? I'm anal.
Next time you go to the demo warrant, that's okay.
What's that?
Next time you go to somebody else's demo warrant, that's okay.
So, set my extension there. Now, so now, I'm going to, I put the nose of the tool up against that block with the shaft resting on there, the shaft resting back here, and it's that easy. Drops right in there. Perfect, right where you wanted it to be. And it's very easy to make. You just grab some scraps out of the scrap bin, glued it and nailed it with the front edge there, with the nose up against it. Then I took another block and positioned it to the back of the tool on the tool shaft. taking into consideration I didn't want to mess with my protrusion gauge. Got that in place, and then just take these 2 blocks and glue and nail them in place. And it's a perfect setup. You know, everything I need to know is right there on that 1 block of wood to set up for this tool.
Yeah, it's patent on that yet?
Nah.
It's rare that
Okay.
sometime.
And now, so let's do. See, let's just show you how quickly, how accurate that sets up. I got some black on my thing there. Let's see how many passes it takes to get rid of that black. That's off a little bit. It's still got a little bit right there. Oftentimes it's closer than that. But you can see, just that quickly, that's how much I had to do to dress that bevel and get a nice fresh cutting edge. Okay, any questions so far on the pivoting jigs or the
Do you ever get your jigs mixed up?
No, because they're numbered.
Oh, you got a number? Okay.
Yeah, numbered. This is my Jimmy Clues grind, number 1.
Oh, okay.
That's my Jimmy Clues gouge, number 1.
I'd have to believe.
Now, if I ever retask this as something else, I just put that on the belt sander, get rid of the number, and renumber it.
Thought you had him on that one, didn't you?
So with all those bowl grinds, which one do you prefer?
Well, the problem is, since I got a couple of those grinds, I've been working on getting this presentation, I haven't been able to turn anything.
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that.
Maybe that'll be July 13th, isn't it? Okay, so much for before I take this off, I typically use the tilting platform for things like spindle roughing gouges, the conventional grind bowl gouges, or scrapers. I'll use the tilting platform. You can use this arm here for some of those tools, for the spindle gouge anyway. You can put this out here. Now, since this is about a 40 or 45 degree nose on that, so with that, I can just come up here and I can eyeball that. I can put some black marker on there and get it perfectly. But with it like that, I've got a good enough angle there that I can just roll it back and forth like that and sharpen that tool. However, if you go to a conventional grind bowl gouge, which in my case I'm using this for a bottom gouge, it's got an 85 degree bevel on it. It's got a micro bevel down. It's got a just ground away the heel down here, but the actual bevel up there is about 85 degrees. If you were to try to do that with this arm and get out to where that bevel is touching, I'd be way down there. That would come so close to digging into that wheel, and that would not be nice. So never do that acute of an angle on this support arm.
What do you do instead?
That's what I'm going to show you.
Go. Gotcha.
Okay, as I said, I'm getting in now where I use the tilting platform for those types of tools. Well, that calls for another gauge. I got this idea from a DVD. It was titled "Sharpening Woodworking Tools" by Mike Darlow. And in the DVD, it has a booklet that actually has pictures of the different tool angles, and he actually goes down to how the diameter of the tool. He says the diameter of the tool is going to affect the angle. Well, you think I'm anal? But here's from 85 degree scraper. I sharpening upside down. There's a 70 degree. I guess that was 70 degrees on that instead of 85. There's my half inch diameter. I stuck with Mike Darlow's theory on the bowl gouge being different. And then here's one from a 45-degree spindle gouge. So the way these work very quickly, you,
What's the
and-
metal pipes for again?
huh?
What are the pins for again?
Oh, that's to hold against the wheel when you're putting it on.
It's kind of like that Raptor that has curved.
Yeah, see, I've got the pins. The pins are pressed against the wheel
the
like that.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so for that bowl gouge, the same thing. I can very safely with the platform here. I can.
So do you have separate ones for different diameter tools?
Mike Darlow does on his, but I'm not quite that anal, I don't think. Okay, so there's the setting for this bowl gouge, and now again, same thing. I hold it down with my left hand. I can just take it like that and just rock it back and forth a few times, and touch up the bevel. Okay, with the other thing I use it for is scrapers. And Jimmy Clues, I think it was the Back to Basic DVD on Jimmy Clues, he shows that he does his scrapers with the top down. So I've got a negative angle in here to lay the scraper top down. And we'll take the burr off of here. You see it? Feel the burr on there. Nice, fine little burr. Now you can sharpen you can do that with a scraper with the face up. And of course, you have the wheel tilted to match the bevel the other way, and it'll produce a burr. I don't know why it'll do it on the cutting edge also. Where that time I had the cutting edge down, it was dragging off of it. You put it face up, it's coming down on the cutting edge, and it sort of rolls the steel back. My feeling is that gives you a much nicer, finer burr than having that molten mass rolled up on top of the thing. But either way, it'll produce a burr. So you just need to try it both ways and see which way works best for you. Now, I haven't tried yet where, who's the guy who was here with the scrapers? Paul Hamler. He was using a burnishing tool on his scraper, of course handheld scrapers, but he went through and filed it down, and then he used the burnishing tool to raise the burr, and then he put on the flat side and used the burnishing tool to lay the burr back down again, and then he raised it back up again. And he said that work hardens that edge and it makes the burr stronger. So I haven't tried that yet on a lathe scraper to see how it works on a lathe tool.
Somebody makes a gadget to do it for you.
Well, Veritas, I've got one of those. I use that too. It's a block.
Those Vicky? Don't you have one of those? Veritas? No.
But it's just a little metal plate that's got a couple holes in it, and one hole is a hardened pin that's there's a couple different pins with different tapers on it, and then there's another pin that you can for a pivot point. And he goes, I've got it screwed down to a block of 2x4, and I put it in my vise, and you just put it on there, and you can raise a nice burr with that also. Okay, that about covers what I had on the dry grinder. Any questions? Okay, we'll move around to the jewel tool next. And
I like that.
okay, I've never been very happy with the results I got sharpening a skew on a dry grinder. I've never been satisfied with the results I got. We all know Mark Chalet and his parabolic grind that he puts on his spindle gouge. I don't know if anybody's looked at that David Ellsworth Turning Wood book that's out here now. It's got that exact same picture in his book.
There's a bunch of people advocating. Did Mark Soleil teach him that?
I don't know who taught who.
Not gonna
I
get
think it derives probably from Cindy DeRose.
Well, I don't know, Cindy Drew. I don't think hers is parabolic like that. It was hers is, she calls hers a vortex tool, and it's much pointier than that. Then with the jewel tool, the wheel, the abrasive is on the bottom side of the wheel. This is a 10 micron or 20 something. It also has the purple wheels, which you can get them in, 80, 180, 220. I think that's a 220 grit purple wheel. And with that, this is where I got introduced to the jewel tool, was with from Mark. But with this, you can, since the abrasive's on the bottom side of the wheel, and those slots in the wheel, once you turn that on, did I unplug something?
No, your cards got power.
The lights are on. Oh, well, it'll probably help you get it. Well, that's plugged in. That's plugged in there. There. Okay. Well, it worked a while ago when I turned it on.
That's because we weren't watching you.
Probably.
Try different side.
oops, the light went out.
Well, darn. Anyway, you just have to trust me on this.
I gotta buy another tool.
With the wheel spinning, the wheel is basically invisible. And you can hold the tool up underneath there and you can see exactly where that tool is contacting the grit. And it's just a matter of taking on it, just rolling it around. You can just follow right around that bevel and sharpen that slick as a whistle. And also you can sharpen it on a wheel, holding it like this. Holding it like this, you can go around. It's kind of, you're kind of guessing when you get down at that bottom down there, but you can sharpen it like that. And when I first got this from Mark doing this, what I had one of those the thick sanding plates out here made out of granite or whatever it is. I just put some 400 paper with some water on it, and I would just go just like that. I could just hone it like that on some 400 paper before I got this. So that's how I kept that sharp for that. And then that grind, the convexed grind, that's telling you that this is got from Jimmy Clues. You can see instead of being concave that you normally get off a grinding wheel, the bevel is convexed. See? Now the way Jimmy ground that with the platform, you see that, Bob? With the platform on there, he just used the platform to hold his hand, and he just took it like this, and he just rolled it up and down, just took it and rolled it up and down the wheel to sharpen it like that. But like I say, I've never been very successful in sharpening it on the dry grinder. But with this, you just hold it up underneath there. You can start back here on the base back here, and you can see right where the wheel's at, and you can just roll it down and just give a perfect edge on it with that.
Do you vary the grits on that?
Huh?
Do you vary the grits?
You can.
Do you?
I use this 120 or use this. Like I say, this is 220, and this is, I think it was 30 micron for the green one. Okay, that's for the jewel tool. And then came the Tormek. I have drooled over a Tormek for years and years, long before I was doing anything with wood turning tools. And I never could convince myself to spend the money that they wanted for one, because they're very proud of their equipment and they charge for it. But I was watching YouTube videos, and and various things. And I finally convinced myself that I need to get one. Well, my birthday was coming up, and so I'm trying to buy myself a birthday present. Okay, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
You get a lap shower next.
Nah. Okay, that comes with the wood turning kit that you can buy. Oh, there was something I wanted to show you. Remember Jimmy Clues? He gave me his bowl gouge grind, and he also did a spindle gouge for me. Well, the bowl gouge or the spindle gouge has got 45-degree bevel. The bowl gouge has got the spindle gouge has got about a 45-degree bevel, and the bowl gouge has got about a 50 or so degree bevel. But it had the same angle setting on the jig here. It has the same angle setting.
Leg setting.
Leg setting. The difference being the arm extension. So I got my arm extension set for the bowl gouge, so I could sharpen my bowl gouge. Well, without changing that arm setting, I can effectively change the step up. This goes from gouge number 1 to gouge number 3. I just set that in there, put my leg against there, and I've effectively changed my extension without changing anything. So I can leak out, sharpen the bowl gouge, put that in, and sharpen the spindle gouge. Okay, this wood turner's kit that you get from Tormek, it has a jig similar to the one-way, the Wolverine bear grind, that you can set on different numbers. This is the, can you see the numbers on there? But that's the different angles. It's got in the card that they give you, they have it shows if you can live with one of the profiles that they give you. Up here we got bowl gouges, we got spindle gouge, and down here we got skews. But it's where they show you the JS, the setting. JS is the jig setting. There you got 2 and 4 and 6, and the spindle gouge got 2 and 6. And then this other jig here they say either hole A or B. Well, the hole A or B is to set this extension of the of your support arm. Just slide it in and out until both those wheels are touching. So that's hole B. So from here you can just set your jig setting with the JS, the protrusion on the back side. They got protrusion settings of 55, 65, and 75. So you lay your tool down, hook on there, you lay your tool on there, and that gives you the protrusion. So with this card, then you don't have to keep track of all this other stuff. But this is kind of fussy setting this number on here. So naturally, I had to come up with a solution for that. So with, I think that's, and the only drawback I have for this is this little brass thing in here that clamps down against the wheel. It's got an O-ring in there, and it's just got enough friction that it won't stay where you want to put it. So they give you labels that you can put on your tool handle. So it shows me for this tool I need a jig setting of 6, I need a protrusion of 75, and I'm going to use hole A. So I set my protrusion for we'll say 65 or 75. 75, so protrusion to 75. And hole A, I did hole A. Hole A is there. And then my jig, I've got a board here. I got jig setting 6. I got a board here that's got JS6. So again, I just lay the jig down in there. There's my set. Comes out the same every time. And again, I like to stand off to one. I like to stay on that, so I'll stand over here so you can see on the camera. But with the dry grinder, with the wet grinder, you don't really put a lot of pressure on the tool. You just let the weight of the tool do it. But on here, if you don't put enough pressure on here, the wheel will glaze over. So you do use this hand and. Not that quick. And that's it. No, but then also with, well, I moved the jig. So if you want to, I'll go ahead and do it. I'll buff the wheel. So put this back.
Waiting on classes, and it starts raining like 10 minutes before you get out. I'd say no something up there.
So you take the arm off and stick it over here for this is a leather wheel over here to put buffing compound on, or what do they call compound? They call it. Oh, I forget. This doesn't work on this side because the swing. It doesn't give you the. I'll show you without the. So that hasn't been on the home, but you can see what kind of edge it gives you there.
How come none of my tools feel like this?
But the thing I really like that for is sharpening my skews. You can do either the standard skew grind that's got the straight bevel. It's got the straight bevel on it. Or you can use have a curved bevel, sort of like what Richard Raffin and Richard Alan Lacer use. And to do that, you got another jig. This is called their multi-jig. And again, I got my label on there. It says I need 30-degree jig setting. I need a protrusion of 65 and hole B. So I've got my jig setting set to 30 degrees. You can see the 30-degree mark there, and there's another mark down here, and you just line those two marks up on this. And then this is one of the people always have trouble with oval skews because you're trying to grind them on a platform like that, and it wants to rock back and forth. This clamps the skew from the edges, so this would be perfect for your oval skews too. Now your skew does have to be rounded over because it doesn't seat. You have trouble getting it to seat in those two V notches if it's not rounded. So I've rounded the bottom and I've just sort of chamfered the edges on the top, and still have a little bit of alignment problem sometimes. But what I did to solve that is I'll just take my little bevel here, and I'll just hold it there, and I'll sight down the screw. I'll sight down along that screw, right? And you see it's off a little bit, so we need to.
Well, you want those edges chamfered, those corners, so it doesn't dig into
Yeah.
the rest. It makes you so.
So I got the bottom completely rounded over, and I just chamfered the top.
Sounds like a tornado siren. Downtown Northwest.
Okay, now I want a protrusion of piece of 65. Am I doing this right? No. I got it stuck in backwards. It's not gonna work that way.
That worked too well that way.
Yeah.
I work on my sharpening, so it's as sharp as these.
Okay, there's my protrusion. And I'll check, see if I got. Yeah, looks pretty good. So with this now, to sharpen, I want hole B. Okay, now to sharpen a regular skew that's just straight across, you just rest this up on this level up here, and you just hold it down on the wheel like that and just go back and forth. But if you take and rock it on this point here, in that fashion there, that gives you the rounded skew. Okay. And it's like, this is what I really like about the Tormek, is being able to sharpen the skew like that. Okay, then some of the naysayers you see about the wet grinder is that it's slow. Well, if you're trying to shape a tool and take off a lot of steel, yeah, it is slow. But if you're sharpening, you can see there it doesn't take any longer on this, and you end up with a better edge. So the way you solve the problem of being able to get it shaped is you go back to the dry grinder. Now, surprised nobody asked me about this earlier. What are these knobs for?
We figured it for adjustment.
Huh?
Adjustment of.
Don't worry, you're not getting no wood turning done.
Spends all his time making jigs.
Yeah. That's
Lots
what.
of different ways to
That's
have
why I
fun.
subscribe to Shop Notes a lot.
There's lots of different ways to have fun.
Yes.
So if you use they give you the dimensions of how far this platform should be below the spindle. You can take your jig setting on there, come over here and shape the tool here, go over there and finish it, sharpen it with the exact same settings.
When I do a skew, if I end up with it curved like that, I feel like I've cut it wrong. You know,
Well, have you
I've got
ever-
some that are curved on purpose, but when I look at it like that and you've got a curve going on both ends instead of perfectly straight.
Have you ever watched any Jimmy Clues or Richard Graffin videos?
Yeah.
Okay, well they use what they use this part up here. Theirs is probably a bit more flat up here on the edge, and they'll use that for a peeling cut. They can go straight in.
If you don't have it flat, you haven't gotten it sharp enough
Yeah.
at the top.
It's not quite the same as what theirs is. It doesn't go to completely flat up there.
Couldn't
But-
do without a lacer.
I've got a skew that was from Allen Lacer, and it has that curve on everything. But you know, that one looks
It's not curved on the top, it's flat on the
It's flat. It should be flat. The last part
Should
up
be.
here
Third of the width
should be a bit.
is square.
That's flat for maybe about a 1/16 of an inch. It's not as
Yeah.
flat as what you.
Well-
And what this is I've got a wider skew, and it has a bit more flat on it.
His recommendation is a third of the width
Mm.
is dip
Yeah.
square.
Anybody else want to see that? I think I'm just about coming to the end. Oh, and then there's also a platform. You have this is the jig here. This is the gouge jig. You have the multi-jig. The reason it's called the multi-jig is it has different inserts. You can take that bit out and put this in place of it, and now you can use it for the spindle roughing gouge bowl gouge, and again, you're holding, and it, when I did it over here, I had to hold it or in line with the wheel. But when you're doing it on there, you're resting up against the surface and just rocking it back and forth, so it holds it right perfect, straight width for you. And then there's also a platform that you can do stuff on a platform on there also.
That all came in.
The wood turning kit,
You know how much that was?
3 something. Yeah.
1,200.
They're very proud of their stuff. But it's good quality. Like I say, the only complaint about it, have about the quality of it, is this little clamping brass thing here.
Yeah.
That won't stay where you put it. It wants to turn, and then when you try to hold it, you can't get. There's not enough room to get your finger in there to hold it, and that's the only thing. And then I tried putting put some oil down in there. Well, that was a big mistake, because the oil got in there, and then the O-ring expanded. Well, the other day for some reason I wanted to take that off. I took it off, and that O-ring expanded, and I had a fit to try to get that stuff back down in there.
So you had one in your shop.
What's that?
You had one in your shop.
Well, that if you're shaping your tools, I would not get the Tormek. Use it. You can. It just takes a long time, because there's a stone grater that comes just with the model. It's just a block of stone that's got coarse on one side and smooth on the other side. And you grade the stone to coarse, and you can get it a bit coarser. And then also, the wheel is turning this way, so it's going away from you, so it's not quite as aggressive. You can also stand it up here and use the same jig, and now the stone is coming into the tool to make it a bit more aggressive. But still, it's going to take a lot longer to shape it on here than it would over there. The skew, if nothing else, I'm really pleased with what I get the skew I get on there.
I'm very impressed with your Tormek, but do you know of a professional turner that's using one correctly?
Richard Raffin's turning wood video, he says at the front of it, so I normally use a wet grinder, but since most people don't have a wet grinder, I'll do my demo on dry grinder.
Does anybody have experience with
And I think, who's the guy that does, oh shit, can't think, I know he's got videos out there. There's,
While you're on that topic of that, Jet makes a system that,
I was gonna say, anybody use this?
in a lot of cases, looks almost identical to
yeah,
this.
but it's not the same quality though.
Yeah. And a lot of the tooling is absolutely interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if Jet made a knockoff for the turning kit.
I don't know. No, the another one that I've looked at a little bit is that Robert Sorby belt sander. The Robert Sorby belt sander has a tool that looks very much like that, but instead of having this pin down here that fits into a hole, you got on down here, you got a little bar, it's got a pin and it's got a hole in it. Well, instead of having this bit here, it just comes down here, it's got that pin that sticks down, that sits in that hole. But this part up here looks identical. And the Jim Ferris, I think it is, if you ever, yeah, belt sander, Robert Sorby.
2-inch belt.
But what I can see, the nice thing about that is that the belts are easily replaceable. You can get different grip belts, and the belts are like $14 for a belt. And this that goes at different angles. You can lay it down or stand it up. And then I say replacing the belts is easy. But there's the jig thing. You see that little? It's got the bit up here the same, but then it's got this little tube thing here that it fits in and pivots on. But that's $500 for that one. But the guy, if you ever watched it, if you went on YouTube and watched YouTube videos on Tormek, Jim Ferris does all the videos on YouTube for the Tormek. Well, at the last woodworking show, he was doing the demo on this. He says, "Oh, this is better than the Tormek."
How's our paying?
Yeah.
You'll never get another gig with Sorby.
Okay, I think I'm about coming to the end of the stroke here.
Diamond homes, you talked about diamond homes, did you?
I didn't. If you, well, you saw I did. I used the diamond home when I removed the burr on the scraper a while
Poor
ago.
man's Tormek.
Right.
That's all you use.
But what Jimmy Cruz does,
Keep your skew.
when Jimmy Clues sharpens his skew, I'm going to do this skew, he will hone it I can't look backwards here. You take the diamond hone and you rest it on the heel, and then you roll it forward to the edge, and then you just maintain that that same angle. And what you're doing, you should see a shiny mark there and a shiny mark here. And that's what Alan Lacer does. He says because of that convex grind on there that he puts on his, he can hone it many times before he has to go back to the grinder, and he strictly hones his with the diamond stone.
Well, you can do the same thing with a convex grind.
Well, it'd be harder to control. You'd have
you got two surfaces later.
well, with the convex shear, it's going to be rocking back and forth, and if you round it over too much, you're going to be getting rid of your dulling your point instead of sharpening it.
The opposite curvature.
You mean concave?
Two surfaces.
Yeah, concave. That's concave going there.
Yeah, that's what I was talking
Yeah, concave going.
about.
Okay. Where you can see that it's got a shiny bit. You see it? Yeah, see, there's a bit of shine down there on the heel and a bit of shine up on the tip. Well, that's where my hone was touching.
Yeah.
So that you can hone it many times before you have to go back to the grinder again. Yes.
I saw a guy use a slipstone on his flutes.
Yeah, it's not as aggressive as what the diamond is, the slipstone. Yeah, but I've seen people use on the slipstone, and that's some people really say you need to do that. Like this one here, this is a which one's going to show up best on here? It's not really showing up, but there's tooling marks in that flute. There, you see the tooling marks in there?
Yeah, that's something that Harbor Freight delivers with their tools.
Yep. Well, that's where you use a slipstone, because you're not going to if you got little grinding marks inside the flute, when you come up and sharpen it here, you're going to have those little grinding marks reflected through on the flute.
Makes it more aggressive.
So what you use a slipstone for is go in there and polish that flute to get rid of those grinding marks. And also after you sharpen it, you'll have on a bowl gouge you'll get a bit of a burr rolled over inside the flute. You can use a slipstone to go in there and get rid of that burr.
That's what he was using for.
Mhm.
He was using silver speed flutes.
Mhm.
When he demonstrated, but every time he came off
Yeah.
the wheel.
You can feel it when you take your off the thing. Just rub your fingernail in there, and you can feel just a little bit of a burr inside the flute. And you can. And what I use for that is so the fish hook, and you get this out here. It's just a fish hook sharpener. It's got a groove in it for the point of the fish hook, but it's a diamond. And I'll just take that and just go like that inside the flute and get rid of that burr.
If you want to get rid of tooling marks, you can also use a dowel with multiple grits of
Yeah, sandpaper and rub it down, yeah.
Really work down, but it's a lot of work to get rid of tooling marks on cheaper tools.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, I don't know if you recognize the handle, but these are Harbor Freight tools. You can get a set of about 6 or 8 tools for $70. And for just playing with, to try different grinds, my opinion, it's perfect for that. So you grind away some cheap steel.
That set they have out here is a better buy, I think, because it comes with bowl gouge.
Yeah.
And the tools are a little thicker, I think. The scraper,
Yeah,
the skew, and some of the others are a tad thicker.
The spindle gouge I got out of the set was worthless.
Sorry.
I tried sharpening it, and you could bend that Joe with your fingernail.
Yeah, that's what I found. They must have done all of the same
Yeah.
way, because mine was 6 years old
Yeah.
now, and it's useless.
Yeah. That's it.
Thank you.